Today I'm canning pumpkin, and it is especially hard to do this year because our Halloween pumpkins were so darn cute. Check this out.
What does a one-eyed jack-o'-lantern wear? What? A pumpkin patch.
Stop encouraging him.
I like that one because it's about pumpkins. Yeah.
No more.
But with visions of pumpkin pie and pumpkin bread and pumpkin cheesecake in my head, I decided I'd can the one that didn't have a sense of humor. Now when you're canning pumpkin, it's recommended that you use the pie pumpkin types because they're sweeter and they have a better texture for it and so forth. But by the time you take off the stem and around the blossom end and you peel it and you scoop out all the seeds and such, you're not left with a whole heck of a lot. So I prefer to use the big carving type of pumpkins, the jack-o'-lanterns. I don't notice all that much of a difference personally. When you're selecting a pumpkin to can, you want one that is dry and dense. And to check for that, you can take your fingernail and insert it into the pumpkin. I hope you can see that. See, I'm easily putting marks in this pumpkin with my fingernail. And you don't want that for canning. You want one that you cannot put an indentation in your fingernail. This one, I'm not penetrating it at all. This is a good pumpkin to can. Use the same method for canning pumpkin to can winter squashes. Very often people will can butternut squash. I don't can mine because it just keeps so well just like this. I keep it in a bucket in the back room and they'll still be good next June. And this is November. Okay, let's get on to canning the pumpkin. The first thing you want to do is wash the pumpkin well. You don't want to wash it after you slice it up because the exterior of the pumpkin can have bacteria on it, and when you slice into the pumpkin, the knife can force the bacteria into the flesh of the pumpkin. That might sound petty to a lot of you, but if you've ever tried to grow pumpkins in a humid area and you've seen the amount of mold and mildew and rot in a pumpkin patch, you take that advice very seriously. So I'm going to wash this very well, and you don't use soap or detergent or anything. Just wash it and scrub it well with warm water. So some people would probably think that the canning process would kill any bacteria that might be present on the foods that you're canning. However, the canning recommendations are based on having pretty much a minimal amount of bacteria in your food. And it's not based on a bacterial overload. So you really want to be careful not to introduce a lot of microorganisms into your food when you're canning it, expecting the process to take care of all of any dangers that might be present. And it's nothing worse than canning something and then having it go bad. So the first thing I do is I take the stem part out of the pumpkin. Now I'm going to cut the pumpkin in half. Now I'm going to scoop out the seeds. And an ice cream scoop works excellent for this because it's sharp enough that it cuts. It works better than a spoon does. So scrape out all the seeds and the stringy stuff. If you like eating pumpkin seeds, you could roast them and use them up that way. If you like to grow your own, save them for planting next year. Once the pumpkin has been cleaned out and cut in half, I cut it in half again across the equator, just like so. So then you have a flat piece to lay on your board. And it cuts easier if the skin side is facing you. So now just slice it into about 1-inch slices. All the way around. Now you need to peel the pumpkin. The best way to do that is with is with one of these wide vegetable peelers. One of the old little ones like this, it doesn't work at all. It's wrong. This one here works easily. So just peel it like that. Makes easy work of it. Then cut them into cubes, approximately 1-inch cubes. Okay, I cubed all the pumpkin up, washed it again, and I've boiled it for 2 minutes. You boil it for 2 minutes and 2 minutes only. You always can pumpkin in chunks. You do not want to can it in a puree, and you don't want to cook it so long that it turns into a puree. And the reason is because pumpkin is so dense that if you have a puree, then the heat may not be able to penetrate to the center of the jar to can it safely. So I've had so much pumpkin here that I've had to cook this in batches. So what I do is I cook a batch, set this over here, and then I cook another batch. While this is cooking, I'll be canning up the other. This is actually my second canner load today. Okay, canning pumpkin is one of those deals where your space is at a premium, so you have to be kind of organized. So I have had the pumpkin cooking over there, and I've had to do it in batches because there was just too much to do all at once. I have my cooked pumpkin here. Still have another batch of pumpkin cooking over there. So I take a hot jar and I fill it with pumpkin to within 1 inch of the top. You can add salt if you like. I don't want salt in mine. It would be half a teaspoon per pint, 1 teaspoon per quart. According to Ball, you're supposed to use a fresh, hot boiling water to top off the jar with. According to the USDA, you can use the same liquid that you cook the pumpkin in, and that's what I would do if I was able to cook all the pumpkin in one batch. Because as it is, I'm using that liquid to cook more pumpkin right now. So I'm using the fresh water. Then I remove the air bubbles with a non-metallic object. Wipe the rim of the jar clean with a damp paper towel. Then I get a hot lid and a hot ring. And I tighten them firmly. I still heat my lids and rings. You don't have to if you don't want to. Then I set the jar back in the canner to stay warm until all the jars are full. Since there's not enough water in that little pot to handle the whole canner load, I take the water from the hot jars and I put it in there and then use it as needed. Okay, now that I have all the jars full, I'm taking them out of the water bath canner, putting them into the pressure canner to be processed. Pumpkin is always pressure canned. I only use the water bath canner to heat my jars because if I heated them in my pressure canner, I can't get the lid on. When the pot's hot, it just does not work out for me. So this is the way I always do it. Once you have your jars in your canner, you need to add a couple of inches of water to the bottom of the pot. And put the lid on and follow your manufacturer's directions for using your pressure canner. They can all be different. You need to process pints for 55 minutes, quarts for 90 minutes. And if you live at high altitudes, you need to adjust your pressure to suit your altitude. When the time is up, you turn off the heat. You let the canner sit for at least 30 minutes before you try to open it. When all the pressure is off of the pressure canner, carefully remove the lid and take the jars out of the canner, set them on a towel on the counter to cool. The next day, remove the rings, wash the jar, write pumpkin on the top and the date that you canned it. When you're using home canned pumpkin, you're not supposed to can this in a puree. So you can it in chunks, and then when you go to use it, you drain it very well in a colander, and then you put it into a blender and you blend it up. And just like that, you have a pumpkin puree. 1 quart of pumpkin gives you 2 cups of puree. Okay, from that 1 pumpkin, I got 6 quarts and 7 pints of pumpkin. And I just ran up to Walmart to pick up a few things, and they have their pumpkins marked down to $1. Now, when you compare that to the price of commercially canned pumpkin, hope you can see that it's $1.96 for a can of Libby's pumpkin, 87 cents for the Great Value brand. So you can have all this for $1 if you hit up Walmart right now. So that's how you can pumpkin. I hope it helps.